Alrighty, let's first of all tackle by checking your kind of preview to Module 5 assignment first, and then we'll dive into that first lesson in Mod 5, which should go pretty quickly, I think. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Will you open up to the Reading Startup page, which has some vocabulary here? Okay, I think it's around page 138 or so. And let me get this full screen so it's a little better. And here we go. All right. It says that you should be able to use the review words that fit these descriptions. So here's your review words to choose from. Let's see what you got. Okay. A statement that two ratios are equivalent. That's like saying fractions that are equal to each other. So for example, 1/2 equals 2/4. Okay. Two ratios, fractions, they're equivalent, meaning they have the same value. This is what a proportion is. Proportion. The next one, compares a number to 100. Well, that's percent. And a comparison of two numbers by division. That would be what a ratio is. Okay. All right. These bottom ones. A fixed percent of the principal. Okay, so preview words, we have percent decrease, percent increase. The principal, which when we calculate interest on money or an investment, or maybe it's a loan and you're borrowing money, the principal is that first initial amount of money that you're starting with. Okay, so that's what principal means in this situation for money. And then it says a fixed percent of the principal. A fixed percent. Well, when we take a percentage times the principal and some time, this is what simple interest is. So I should make sure I use the word simple. I just write so big I can't make it fit, all of it, all right? The next one, when it says the original amount of money that gets deposited or borrowed, this is called the principal. And then when it says something is the amount of the increase divided by the original amount, this will end up being the percent of the increase. What is the percent of the increase? Okay. All right. Now let's go on to that Are You Ready page and let's check and see what you remember about this preview stuff here. Okay. Talking about percents, fractions, decimals. How do you take percent of a number? Which you focused on tons in 6th grade. So let's just review or remember how to do this. When you have a decimal, you want to turn it into a percent. Okay? Percent, this symbol actually means that you're dividing by 100. So when I want to go back to the decimal, it has something to do with 100, basically whether you're multiplying or dividing by 100. When I'm saying 22 and then the percent sign means divided by 100, that means it's 22 over 100, and as a decimal, 22 hundredths that way. 75 hundredths. Careful on this guy, you better have that 0 in there. And this one should be 1.89. So watch your decimal places, okay? Remember that 100 means 2 decimal spots. So basically you're just taking the decimal point and moving it over to the left 2 spots. If you start with the decimal, then take those 2 to the right. So this would be 59%. Boom, boom. 98%. Boom, boom. 2%. Boom, boom. 133%. Cool. All right, then this last section down here is remembering how do you take percent of a number. Okay. Typically that word of is indicating to you to multiply. So take the percentage times that number to get your final. So this one says 50% of 64. Plug in 0.5 or 0.50 times 64. 7% of 30. Let's see. And this one, and let me just double check because I don't have a calculator handy. 2 and 1/10. 15% of 160 should be 24. 32% of 62 is 19 and 84 hundredths. Now they didn't say it around here, so just write it as is. 120% of 4. Stop for a second. Think, think, think. What's happening here? If I take 100% of 4, I'd get 4. So if I'm doing 120%, I should end up with something bigger than 4 because I'm going more than 100%. And you are. You should get 4 and 8/10. The last one, 6% of 1,000. You should end up with 60. Okay? Cool. Now we're ready to dive into this first section. All right? Because we're assuming you've got all this prior knowledge when it comes to working with percents. So now we're going to move on to the percent of increase and decrease. All right, so I've got to get this one up for you in just a second. Here. And now I'll open up this guy. Boom, boom. Is it opening? There we go. All right, so when they're talking about, it's been stubborn and slow, man. So when they're talking about the percent of increase or decrease, what we're talking about is I want you to notice the equation or the formula way of explaining this. Okay, they're saying, take a look at what we're comparing. Okay, we usually have a starting number and an ending number. So if I look at my two numbers, first figure out how much did this change from the beginning to where it is right now. Put that in the numerator. And then in the denominator, go back and put the original number in. Once you have that fraction, you can turn that into a percent. And if you want to go by way of turning it to a decimal, and then boom, boom, 2 spots, there you go. So if my starting point to my new number is increasing or getting bigger, you call this a percent of increase. So let's figure this out. Let's look at a few. It says Amber got a raise. Her hourly wage increased from $8 to $9.50. So what's happening here? Okay, so from $8 to $9.50. You have to first of all find how much did it change. From $8 to $9.50 is $1.50. Then what was my starting number or my original amount? That was $8. Put that down there. Grab your calculator and take $1.50 divided by 8. Once you get that, you probably have it written as a decimal, then turn it into percent, which means multiply by 100, which means go 2 spots. Okay, move it 2 spots to the right. And here we go. So the decimal you got was 0.1875. When you move that 2 decimal places to turn it into a percent, 18.75%. My directions said round to the nearest whole number percent. So 18 and 75/100 would turn into about 19%. Okay, cool. What would 100% increase mean? Okay, so let's say we're back at $8 an hour. What if she got 100% increase? So how much would the increase be? Another $8. Oh my gosh. What's that as a total now? What she would make an hour? $16. What does that mean? In effect, it means you double the original amount because you have that entire amount being added to it again. Cool. Okay, let's take a look at this one. All right, going shopping for shoes. Price went from 52 to 64. What's the percent of increase? All right, well, 52 to 64, it went up 12 bucks. Divide that by 52, okay? When you do that, you got to get a decimal, okay? It's less than 1. So what I'm going to look at here, okay, is that, I have to use my phone because I don't have a calculator here. 12 divided by 52. All right, get this big long old decimal. 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 7, 6, 9, blah, 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 blah. It keeps going. I want to turn it into percent, so I'm going to move it 2 spots. 23 point, now it goes 0, 7, 6, 9. But if I want to round it to the nearest whole percent, basically I'm saying, all right, keep it at 23 or up to 24. When I look at the next digit, it's a 0, so we're going to keep it there. Keep that 23%. All right, let's try some more. Boom. This is talking about what if it decreases, okay? So let's look at this one. Percent decrease describes how much a quantity decreases in comparison to the original. David moved from a house that is 89 miles away from his workplace, now to one that's 51 miles away from his workplace. Is he crazy? That's a super long commute. Ooh, no way. What's the percent of decrease? So first, okay, we're going to make a fraction, and we got to find how much did it change. It went from 89 to 51. So let's find the difference there. I think you get 38. There you go. What was the starting amount? 89. Okay. Now, some people will use the words that it's a decrease. Some people might want to say it's negative. So you might see that as well. This book doesn't necessarily do that, but it can happen. 38 divided by 89. Okay. So I get that super long decimal. Okay. 0.4269662 blah, 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 blah. Okay. We're going to move it 2 decimal places. So you get 42 point. Now, this one said round to the nearest percent. Since this next digit is a 6, and that's bigger than 5, round this guy up to 43%. There you go. All right. Let's see. If David decided to move again even closer, he claims that if he had done so, the percent of decrease would have been more than 100%. Is David correct? Well, let's hold on. Okay? So at this point, if he's 51 miles away, so to get 100%, he would have to move all 51 miles, which means he'd be 0 miles from work. That'd mean he lives at work. Okay? Is his claim even accurate? No. Okay? And it says explain why. Okay? You can just say this. A 100% decrease would mean David lives 0 miles from work. Sorry, I'm sloppy here, didn't it? Okay. So to be greater than that decrease just simply isn't possible. It doesn't make sense. Okay. All right, let's take a look at some of these last ones here in the bottom. The number of students in the chess club decreased from 18 to 12. How much did it change? 6. It went down 6. What was the starting number? 18. What was the percent that this decreased? What is 6/18 as a fraction in simplest form? It's 1/3. Write 1/3 as a percent. Well, as a decimal, it's 0.3 repeating. So as a percent, you'd get 33 0.3333. Well, we're going to round this to the whole percent, so we should get 33%. This one, the officer Brimberry wrote 16 tickets for traffic violations this last week, but only 10 this week. Started at 16 and now went to 10. So that's a decrease of 6. Divide that by your starting value, which was 16. Okay? And this one, I believe, as a decimal, you get 0.375. Okay? Now, notice this one just said what's the percent that it decreased. It didn't say anything about rounding. So, move it 2 spots, you get 37.5. Percent sign, leave it like that. Okay? Just leave it. All right, one of these last ones here, we're going to talk about grizzly bears. Okay? Now, this one said that they had about 270 bears to start with. And then over the next 35 years, it increased by about 115%. So what was the population in 2005? Well, so you start with 270, that's our starting number, multiply it by 115%. They already changed it to the decimal, so if you want to do that, go ahead. Your calculator happens to have a percent button, so you can use that. Okay? Now, on your calculator, you get 310.5, but we're talking about animals. It's kind of bizarre to talk about half an animal. So they're rounding it appropriately to get 311. Add that on to the 270. That gives you 581. Okay? All right, so let's just take a look at these two down here so I make sure you got these ones. A 10% increase from a TV that was originally $499. So let's take 10% times $499. Okay, grab your calculator, do that one. 49.9. Now, that's just the amount that it's increasing. So we need to take 49.9 and add that to 499. Oh my goodness, good grief. So when you get that, now my grand total, okay, after the price went up on this one, I'm just double checking, looks like it's $548.90. $548.90. And then this one, the 30% decrease. Now hold on. Let's do that part first. So take 30% times $499. And that one, let me grab my calculator because I can't do quite all that in my head. All right, 30% times $499 is $149.70. But this is a decrease. That means I get to subtract that from the original $499, which is awesome because that's giving me a nice hefty discount on this TV. So now my sale price should be $349.30. Make sure you label it. Okay? Alrighty, here you go. So this is page, what was this? Page 144. And I want you to do 1 to 22. Okay? And what I specifically want you to do on these first ones, remember to find the percent of increase or decrease, you have to make a fraction. You have to say how much did it go up from 5 to 8. It went up 3, and I started at 5. Take 3/5, turn it into a decimal if you want to, and go right to percent then. And this would be 60%. Jump down to number 8. This time it says decrease. That just means we're going down. So from 80 to 64, how much did you drop? We dropped 16. Divide that by the original, 80. And on this one, I do believe you get 20. Well, as a decimal, you get 0.2, but 20% on it. Okay. All right. I think you got it. You're set to go. Use your calculator, but show me what you're doing. Good luck, and may the force be with you.